It's really like a game of chess, particularly at the higher level. If you want to get ahead in the point, you've got to think 2 moves ahead. Hi guys, Sandy here. Now we often talk about anticipation or predicting your opponent's shot, but the question is how do you do that? What are you looking for and what should you be trying to think for that next shot? Now if you've ever played against a higher level player or you've watched the World Padel Tour live and you think that they're so fast, yes they are, but also it's because their anticipation is so good. So in this video we're going to give you 3 main steps on how you can actually read your opponents in a match. So before we go into the 3 steps, if you're new to paddle or you're relatively new to paddle and you've come onto the court, you're probably ball watching, you're just focusing on the ball, but you need to start opening your awareness and seeing where your opponents are, seeing what type of shots they're about to hit, and in these 3 steps we're going to discuss specifically what you should be looking for. So in paddle there are a huge number of possibilities that a player could hit, the lobs down to the feet, short angles, fast balls, spin balls, off the side glass, off the back glass. It's very difficult firstly to play the game, and also it's difficult to defend and to play against someone that has enormous variety. But the first step or area is, as soon as you think about your shot, you'll be able to narrow down those choices. So wherever you hit the ball, they will have a certain number of shots that will be either a likely outcome all the way to an unlikely outcome, all the way to impossible for them to hit. As an example, if you've hit a lob down the middle and I've come across and I'm going to hit my backhand bahada like this, there are certain shots that are physically impossible. It's impossible for me to hit a topspin kick over the fence, for example. It's physically impossible really for me to play a drop shot from this position, also because you're going to be at net. There are other things that are quite unlikely. So it's unlikely for me to be able to play angle to the fence. It's possible, but a high risk to me and a very difficult shot to go for. So you can say, right, that's lower end of the risk. And then there's shots that are higher probability because it's more comfortable for me, but you can tell from your shot. So in this position, it's a higher probability for me to either go cross court or down the middle or to lob. And that is basically immediately things you can tell from your shot. There we use the backhand bahada, but really it would be the same with all of the shots. If you were to hit a lob to a certain side of the player, from certain positions that they're not going to be able to play. For example, if it goes over the left side, they can't really play a strong vibra from this position. They can't play a drop shot, they can't play a lot of shots. So a good way to think about this is when you're hitting your shot, you want to think, right, what could I, if you're a similar level, what could I possibly do from that situation, and start analysing. And this is something you can do off court. Even if you're watching World Padel Tour matches, you can see that they are playing most of the time, particularly in the ladies' game where they play slightly more kind of tactical paddle, they are playing percentage shots, good strategic shots from certain positions, and you can start to read the game and say, right, from that shot you can then see the options that your opponent could play. So the second step or area is the movement of your opponent. And if we're going to use this example again of the backhand bahada, if for example the lob goes over my head and my movement is slow to that ball and I'm moving back and I'm getting in a position like this, again, that is just cutting down the options. You've got to really watch that and see from here is more than likely I can only scoop, and it cuts out the option of an attacking backhand bahada down the glass. Now, if I were to move quickly around it and I'm in this position, I still have lots of options from here. I could change and I could lob, I could hit fast, aggressive down the middle, I could still play the angle. But it is down to my movement. If I've come to this position here, it's likely that I'm going to have to scoop because of my bad body position for that ball. The same would apply if I run back and my contact is, I'm in half good position, but my contact is going to be a bit behind me. It then means that that option down the center is difficult, and the option to the fence on the close side is impossible. So therefore the likelihood of me going cross court or trying to lob is higher. So As soon as you watch your opponent move into that position, you can start telling, yep, okay, they're in a good position for this option or this option, but they've completely cut out another option, yeah? So, and that is the same on all of the shots, yeah? If they get into a good position to, you know, the side of the ball, they continue to have good options. If they get into a slightly worse position, they cut down their options, and you as an opponent can react accordingly. So the third area to watch is the opponent's arm and racket, yeah? I know it's kind of together with the body movement, but it can be a real telltale for what they're actually going to hit, yeah? So if they move into a position and it's good body position like this, and they actually come underneath the ball, so the contact would be here, and the racket is down, again using our example of the backhand bajada, then you know from this position they're more than likely going to hit a lob, yeah? Because from here, they're not going to kind of flick the racket up and try and play a fast attacking bajada. More than likely, they're going to hit a lob. The same applies if it comes off that glass and they're in this position, they're unlikely to then hit a lob on that, but they're probably going to play a little bit more aggressive. And this kind of anticipation comes, you know, as they're really preparing on the take back for their ball, yeah? So, you know, you want to be watching them, and as soon as you see their take back, you start to get a really good picture of what they're going to hit, yeah? By the time they're contacting the ball, you want to have narrowed down those options as much as physically possible so that you can anticipate that shot. You'll also see, you know, and we're using the example of the backhand bajada here, but it's the same, you know, of a ground stroke. If they're going to open up and the racket is above the height of the ball, the racket face is open, more than likely they're going to play a slice on that. And if it's low like this, often they might either play flat or topspin, yeah? So you want to look at the third step would be the arm and the racket of your opponent. So an area that we see a lot, particularly with the arm and the racket phase, is from the back of the court. And, you know, you're playing against an opponent, and this is why when players say to me, oh, my opponent's always lobbing or they're always doing this, it's so predictable, because often the ball is coming here and they're coming like this right underneath that ball, and you can tell it's going to be a lob before they hit. That means that you can kind of split step and start moving back, preparing for a bandeja at the other end before they've even hit the ball, and therefore you're going to be in a good position. And this is what we've talked about, and I'll link up here, you know, that the movement for the bandeja as an example of a small pattern of play in Padel is really important, and it starts with this anticipation and predicting what your opponent is going to hit. So recapping those options, the first is your shot, yeah? When you hit your shot, you're going from giving them a huge number of options to narrowing down those options ever so slightly. The second is their body movement. Yeah, when you watch their body movement, you see how they get in position, you know, they are then cutting those options down even further. And then when you see their racket and their arm position, they're really narrowing that down to hopefully, you know, a few different options. And this is where high-level players can be so good at disguising their shot. They get in a good position all the time, and it's very difficult to tell what type of ball they are playing, and that's where they are unpredictable, which is really what you want to have from the back of the court. Now, the best way to practice this is to really focus on what your opponents are doing, obviously, but a good way, and something that we do with our students a lot, is watching kind of game footage and just pausing just before a player is about to hit and saying, right, you know, what are their options here? Now, it's difficult in the World Padel Tour because the level is so good and they still have so many options when they get into that position for the ball. And as I said, they've got good disguise, but it can be a great practice. You know, the ball goes into that location, so you're thinking, right, here are possible options. They get into a position, pause the video and say, you know, try and predict what's going to happen. And that is a great way to practice. And if you are going to practice, make sure this is deliberate practice. Yeah, when you're going on court, you're using it in your game, you're really trying to think what your opponents are going to hit. This will definitely help your performance in matches, and soon you'll be getting to a level, hopefully, where when you're hitting a shot, you're now thinking 2 shots ahead, maybe 3 shots ahead, depending on the game situation. But we'll save that for another video. Now, this is something we discuss a lot in our community, the Padel School Plus. We have a community, a private community, only for our students, and in here we've got questions every day being answered by our coaches. So I'll put that link down there if you're interested in the Padel School Plus. I'll also put a video up here for how you can change change the speed from the back of the court and also helping you be unpredictable, which is, as you can see from today's video, a major focus in Padel.